Well, welcome to the show, Bill. Thanks for coming all the way out here to do this today with us. What was the first band you were in?
Well, I had a band right out of high school with some high school friends called Asteroid, and it ended up just like that old song, Summer of '69 by Bryan Adams. Somebody quit, another guy got married, and that was that. But my first Christian band I started in 1985. It was called Redeemer.
You the one that thought of that band name, or?
You know, I did think of that band name, and I think that's actually the only, out of all the bands I've ever had, that's the only one where I ever thought of the band name. I forgot how I even came up with it, but it's one of those things that just somehow I knew it was the right one.
When did you start playing the guitar?
I started playing the guitar, just fiddling around with it in the mid-'70s when I was in high school. I really had this dream. I was a huge Kiss fan, and you know, I started playing guitar back in the mid-'70s. I was a big Kiss fan, and I just remember sitting at a friend's house one day. He was listening to Aerosmith, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play the guitar someday. That's what I'm going to do for a living. Well, I haven't done it for a living yet, but you know, I was a very serious concert trombonist in high school, and fairly accomplished at it, and got some awards and things, and so guitar kind of took a back seat. My parents weren't really crazy about it. They didn't consider it a real serious thing to do. So it had to wait until later, and when I turned 18, the first thing I did was get a job so I could buy some equipment.
Is there any meaning to the band names?
Well, some of them, you know, Redeemer, I just thought it was cool because it was about Jesus, you know, it was a direct reference to the Lord, and I just thought, you know, that's the most important thing that there is the Redeemer. Without that, we're just all dead.
Amen.
So I thought, well, let's go with that. And the next band I was in was a band called Final Acts, and the singer Keith Miles really started the band. He had no members, but he sold t-shirts for Final Acts, a band that didn't exist at his festivals, and people were all stoked. They were walking around, yeah, this is going to be a great band. And he had a basic idea. Well, he thought of the name Final Acts, meaning like the final acts of a play. And you know, he was thinking end times and the way God's going to wind down human history. The band name for the next band I was in after that was a band called Rev 7. And it was me and three other people, and we were thinking about playing together, and we were still praying about it. We didn't know if we were going to make a band together or not. And a couple of guys left the room, and another friend of mine was talking about reverb units and various different processing effects, and we were talking about a Yamaha Rev 7. That was kind of the big standard of the day, and a lot of people big pros were using it. And one of the guys came walking back into the room right when my friend Paul said Rev 7, you know, that's really cool. And the guy goes, his name was Ron, he says, oh man, that is a cool name for a band. And we just looked at each other and laughed. Well, we didn't end up hooking up with those people, but about a year later I did strike out from Final Acts and to make another band, and right away I already knew, you know, we're going to call the band Rev 7. That is just such a cool name. It's got a, you know, and doesn't really have a meaning to it. It just sounds great. And after that was a band called Titanic, which me and the singer from Final Acts got together again. And that kind of signified, you know, man's failures, you know, thinking that, you know, man thinking he's really great and this is unsinkable, and poof, down it went, you know. And the next band that I came up with a name for, me and the president of Retroactive Records, Matt Hunt, tried to come up with a name for my new solo project, and I didn't want to keep using Rev 7 because about every year somebody would send me an email and say, hey, I found another band called Rev 7. They're down in Florida. And I just thought, oh boy, apparently that's pretty easy to think of. And I wanted to get a .com. And I had a longer version of the seventh power, and it was called V to the seventh power. And Matt Hunt says, well, why don't we just call it the seventh power? And it just kind of struck a chord with me right there. Well, you know, that sounds pretty cool. And I said, wait a minute, let me check the domain first. I checked it out. I said, okay, it's available. If you like it, I'm going to buy it right now. And that's why I have the seventhpower.com, because there's one for that. And a couple of years later, Matt Hunt said, hey, I need you to do a solo project. Just you soloing, get Robert Sweet, and anybody else you can think of and just do a wild instrumental album, do all kinds of crazy stuff on it, and we'll just call it Bill Menchen. I said, yeah, okay, I didn't really care about it. I was really thinking about another Seventh Power album. And after we got Tony Franklin on it, the thing started to kind of take a different direction. And he says, Bill, this is too good. We should really get a singer for it. And then he called me back a few days later. Well, I've been talking over with some people that I know, and they think we should just call the album Menchen. And I said, well, fine, whatever. I don't care, It was kind of funny. I don't care about a band that has my name on it. But in Yiddish, it's good guys, so actually that has a good meaning to it, I guess. And that's kind of the meaning of all the names that I've ever had. And really, the ironic thing is the only one that I ever thought of was the first one, Redeemer, and somebody else has come up with all the rest of them.
When did you first know the Lord was calling you to play and write music for Him?
I think it would have to be the year 1985. I still had my high school band from the 70s with a lot of guys, everybody in the band actually was Christians, but some of the people were backsliding and nobody was really what you'd call a serious, spirit-filled type of a Christian. Somebody really out to glorify the Lord with their music. We were playing covers and we had a lot of originals, but our lyrics, we didn't say much. And I just kind of I can't really describe it, put my finger on it, how I knew. I just thought, I've been a Christian for about 5 years now, and I'd kind of been through boot camp, and I felt like, I really need to start doing something that's really going to count for eternity instead of just playing in bars and playing wherever. And so I kind of dropped a bomb on my band, and I think we're kind of done anyways. And I just felt like, I need to try to do something different, and really make this count. I wasn't raised as a Christian. When I became a Christian, everything was new for me. And so I didn't really know what was going on in the world. I didn't know that there was a few groups playing Christian music. And I just thought, why can't I do this? Well, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Stryper wasn't that big a news yet. I think I'd heard their name, but I didn't really know what they were doing or anything. And I didn't have a good example to follow. I just thought, I'm going to strike out and try to do this. And kind of the rest is history after that. There's been a lot of history, and a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of tough times, and backsliding, and failures, and everything you could think of. I've been through a lot of groups and tons of musicians, but 1985 was when I really set out to make a Christian band where I was going to talk about Jesus and let people know about Him. And I certainly don't have any regrets.
Awesome. If you can pick one album or a favorite song from an album that you've done, what would that be?
Boy, that's a tough question because I've got a lot of albums and a lot of songs. Some of my more recent material, I really like. There's two songs from the Seventh Power album called Dominion and Power. There's one called The Clouds. I just think that the vocals that I did on the verse was some of my best vocals, where I actually sound like a great singer there for just a moment. And it's really melodic, and it just somehow I just able to stumble across a great line. And also another song from that album, Under the Altar, is it's really heavy, almost doomy, and it's a very intense subject matter. I've never heard anybody write about the souls under the altar in heaven. And that was actually a really tough song to write, because when I sat down I thought, well, this is going to be easy, this will write itself. And I came up with about 1 or 2 lines, and I'm like, wow, I'm out of material. I don't know what else to say. The Bible doesn't say much about that. You can just speculate. And I just kind of gleaned and paraphrased a little bit of the verses that were around it, and I ended up pulling it off. And Robert Sweet does some great killer hard drum licks, and it's just a great grinding guitar rhythm, if I do say so myself. And I'm kind of proud of that one. That's a pretty cool song. I like those 2 songs. But
I like the whole album. Do you have you always written all the lyrics for the songs in all those different bands?
I write all the lyrics in the songs that I sing, and the groups that I was in Keith Miles with, he wrote the lyrics to those. And a singer usually has to write his own lyrics in most cases. Famous pop groups will sing a song that's written by somebody else, and they do that because they're trying to make money, and maybe somebody wrote a better song. And I'm a songwriter and guitar player and singer. And with the exception of the Titanic Full Steam Ahead album, that was a singer that was hired to sing that, and I actually wrote all the lyrics to that album. So that was the only album where I wrote the lyrics, but I didn't sing them.
Okay. When did you and Robert first meet?
Back in 1996, he was kind of hanging out doing nothing. As everybody knows, Stryper wasn't together at that point. And we had the band Titanic, and we were just hitting some bumps in the road, and changed one or two members, and we got together with Robert. Actually, the singer for that group, Keith Miles, and his wife, Linda Martinez, had known Janice Sweet for a long time. She used to call her every now and off, every so often, that for advice on things, how to run a Christian band, what to do about this, how to handle things like that. And said, hey, well, can we get together? We got a band, and we want to ask you some more questions. Well, Robert was around at the time, and so they got together. They had dinner at Linda's house, and Robert showed up, and that was kind of the beginning of that there. And he still kind of had nothing to do a few weeks later, and we were playing a concert around the Southern California, Inland Empire area, and so he popped by and watched us. And at some point we needed another drummer, and of course we're kind of thinking, oh, it'd be cool if Robert joined, but we kind of felt like he wasn't. And he introduced us to one of his relatives, Steve Lamb, who was actually a really good drummer. So Steve played with us for a few months, and the band kind of broke up. It was hard to maintain a long-term relationship. I was living in Las Vegas, and everybody else was in the Riverside area, and it was kind of crazy. And so we ended up doing some projects and stuff with Robert, and one thing kind of led to another. And by the end of the 90s, though, we kind of weren't doing anything at all. And around 2005, Retroactive Records said, hey, Bill, why don't we see if we can hire Robert Sweet, since he's around, and we'll get some good drumming on some of these albums instead of using program stuff or automated things, and see if we can kind of crank up the energy level a little bit. And from the very first recordings that we did with him, it was just an explosion of energy and power. And as it turned out, there's a good marriage between us, because he was always in Stryper, which is a great, legendary, phenomenal group. But he also had to work within guidelines. You play with the group you're in because that's what you have to do. And just after the first few songs that we had recorded for the Acts of the Apostles, I said, Robert, we were out at lunch one day, and I said, I didn't know you were going to put on a drum clinic here. This is oh, am I playing? I said, no, just keep doing it. It sounds great. And when that record first came out, people were shocked. We got a lot of email, and people were, wow, we've never heard this side of Robert before. And my music is a little more rhythmic, pulsating type of a music than Stryper. And it turns out he's this heavy metal monster that most people don't know about, and he's had a lot of chance to get in a lot of good licks with my material. And I'm really blessed beyond comprehension that I've actually got him on more records than Stryper does under my various different projects named, and I got 3 or 4 in the can that haven't even come out. So there's still a little bit more to come, stay tuned.
That just brings us right into the next question. What are you working on now?
Well, we got about 3 things. I've actually released just uploaded to the internet, iTunes and Amazon, a 5-song EP for the 7th Power called Power and Glory, and that's got Robert on those 5 tunes. And we have another Menchen album called Electric Saints that isn't out yet, and there is a single up on iTunes and Amazon for that called Crucified. So we got 1 song out there that people can sample for that and download it. He's also recorded all the drumming for a 3rd Final Acts album, and we just haven't found the right singer to put on there yet, but the drums are all done, and it's pretty progressive. It's yet another sounding project with me and him. It doesn't sound like any of the other Final Acts albums or anything else that I've done either. Pretty pretty aggressive, progressive drumming, and a little bit different, aggressive kind of a tone with the guitar. And so there's 3 right there, and there's probably something else I'm forgetting. But yeah, there's those 3 we got coming out sometime, God willing.
Cool, we look forward to that. Also, you can check out Bill Menchen on Facebook, as well as, like he touched on, go to Amazon and pick up his music, and also see him here on the Righteous Rock Show. We thank you again, Bill, for taking the time out to do this interview for us. We really appreciate it.
Well, hey, it's my privilege to be here, and thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity, and this is great fun.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.